Good morning. Welcome to Sri Lanka Morning Show. Today we have with us Sanji Caldera, Principal Migration Agent of Sanji Caldera and Associates. Good morning, Sanji.
Good morning, Sonari.
Today I think we'd like to discuss a bit about migration and how it has changed post-COVID. Could you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yes, certainly it has changed post-COVID, and what has taken place is in the last 2 years we have had much less people coming into Australia. This has created a vacuum, this has created a lot of skill shortages, so the government is taking some steps and really accelerating the general skill migration pathway. In fact, in December, they invited almost 35,000 people to apply for their migration to Australia. So the department is taking some very serious steps to increase the working population in Australia.
To make up for lost time.
That's correct, to really make up for lost time, yes.
That's good news, I suppose, for people wanting to come to Australia from overseas. What are some of the categories that they could perhaps be successful in applying for, perhaps if they had the skills?
Yes, there are so many visa categories. Now, this is really the good time to apply for general skill migration. In the past, they were really restricted with quotas, and of course, COVID didn't allow any invitations to be extended to these potential applicants who want to come to Australia. But now, what the government is doing is giving generously, inviting these people, skilled people. There are no rule changes, but they're expediting the whole process so that to fill up the skill shortages in Australia.
Wonderful. I'm sure our audience would be very keen to know what some of those skilled categories might be.
Right. I have to admit that there are two main areas. I need to go back one step back and say there is the independent category, and we also have the state government sponsored category. So in Australia, as we know, we have the different states, they have their skill shortages, so they would have their own lists and own rules and regulations, but all leading to permanent residency. Now, as far as occupations are concerned, the required list is fairly lengthy. They're at all aspects of it. But if I am forced to name a few, accountants, chefs, network engineers, all IT professionals,
right,
and so forth, and all trade occupations, they are getting priority invitations.
Okay, well that's good to know, Sanji. And does that vary from state to state? Is that what you were saying previously?
That's correct. It varies from state to state, and the state government is giving opportunities for people who are already in Australia, the people who have studied here and who are working in their fields, but also they are having a very good quota for people from all over the world to come in to general skill migration.
That's really good to hear, Sanji. And what about those students who are here already, but perhaps haven't finished their studies yet, but wish to remain in the country?
That's correct. So there has been certain times that the students may have got their studies interrupted because of COVID and for various reasons. Now, they have two options. One, if they have a long study period that they need to, they simply have to go and ask for an extension of their student visas. But there are some applicants who are running out of options, and the government has been very generous, and they have what we call the COVID 408 visa. When there's no other option, they could apply for that. But certainly for students who have completed 2 years, they have what we call the post-work stream visa. That is a visa that you get with work rights and where they get ready for permanent residency. But again, at the end of that, if they run out of options, there is the 408 COVID visa. So there are a lot of opportunities for students in Australia.
That's fantastic to hear. And what about students overseas who want to come here?
Certainly, the doors are open, and there is an influx of students coming to Australia. And again, the department is processing these visas very, very quickly, because the universities have been absolutely, they didn't have students for a very long time, and now all those universities are being filled up by overseas students. So there is plenty of opportunities for overseas students to come to Australia.
Isn't there a particular exam, an English language exam that students overseas are supposed to do before they come to Australia?
Yes, and in fact, there are some new rules around the English exam. For people who have studied in English, they don't have to study English in order to apply for a student visa.
Right.
But for the other students who have not studied if they have not had significant studies, then they need to do English, and it will depend what the score that they require will depend from the university to university and from the course to course. But the new rule for undertaking English, in the past it was always one sitting. You have to get the score one sitting. But again, we have some generous exemptions that should you miss out on, let's say, one element of the exam, there is 4 elements of all English exams, that you can resit and present that result, and that will be considered as they have achieved that result in one sitting.
That's fantastic. And that's the IELTS. The IELTS.
That is only applicable for the IELTS test. There are many other English tests, but that provision is only for IELTS.
And am I right to understand that if you have studied in English, you don't have to do this test?
Yeah, for students, if you have studied in English, you don't have to. But when it comes to general skill migration, you certainly have to undertake the English, unless and otherwise you hold a passport from certain countries like England or USA or in New Zealand.
That's very positive news. I'm sure our viewers today will very much benefit from the information you've shared with us today. Thank you so much, Sanji.
Thank you, Sunari.
We look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.